Assists, a helping hand with your land.
Neil from Messick's here today to run you through the installation of a WR long third function kit. WR is our go-to company when we need a third function kit to fit on a wide variety of tractors. They make things that are going to fit just about every model that's out there on the market, and so we really appreciate the flexibility that they give us to be able to service just about any customer's machine. We are able to sell these things to you. If you click on the link down at the bottom, it'll take you to our website where you can go through and configure a kit for your machine, or give us a call. We're certainly happy to talk you through it over the phone as well. For those of you not well versed in a third function yet, it is an attachment that you can put onto your front loader that opens your loader up to a whole new sphere of implements. A lot of those front hydraulic implements that in the past may have been locked up on skid steers and construction machinery now are making their way down into compact tractors as well. So the heart of your third function kit is this electronic diverter. These actually aren't nearly as complicated as what they look like. You have a pressure port here on the bottom, a return to tank port over here on the side. Those are marked with P and T, and those are going to divert. Normally your oil is going to flow right through here. Those are going to divert the fluid to one or the other port here based upon what happens on this electronic diverter that's stacked on top of this valve body. Inside of each one of these round cases right here is a 12-volt solenoid. That solenoid moves little pistons inside of this top portion in order to divert that oil around. You'll notice there's a little electronic connector up here on the top. That's where the buttons on your joystick are going to plug into. So for our very first step of the process here, we're going to take this valve body on this and bolt it right onto the side here on the loader post. So perhaps one of the more difficult things about installing a third function kit is knowing exactly what ports to hook up to in order to get pressure and where to return the fluid. Generally, you're going to start by looking for your loader valve. So right down here on the back side of the tire, we've removed the tire here, we can get easy access to the loader valve. If you get in here and you start digging around, if you got a tractor like this, it's got some hours on it, you might have to scrape some dirt off. You want to look for some letters that are generally stamped into the side of these valves. In the case of this one, you're going to have a P for pressure, that's where the pressure comes into the valve, a T for tank, for it returns back to the tank, and another one over here. In this case, it's marked BY. BY would be the power beyond port. That's what you're looking for. It's a port that taps in alongside of this loader valve in order to feed that third function circuit. Power, tank, and this would be your power beyond right here, this banjo fitting there in the back of the valve. For our next step here, we're going to take the power beyond hard line right here that's coming off the power beyond port of the loader valve and run it back up here to the top of the transmission case underneath of the seat and actually remove this hard line. We're going to open this up. Normally the tractor's hydraulic system runs in a loop. Right now this is part of the loop. We're going to open this up and then use two hoses. They're going to tie that third function valve into the tractor's hydraulic loop. One tip we can give you here when you're doing this is to keep all of the parts as you go, because oftentimes you may reuse some of them or need to put them back on later. You also want to take your tractor's three-point hitch and drop it down the entire way. Your three-point hitch is hydraulically operated, and if there's weight pushing down on the three-point hitch, sometimes it can create a little bit of pressure back in the hydraulic system. So dropping the arms down will make sure you lose the least amount of fluid possible as you're pulling these pieces off. You are going to want to take some kind of drip pan or something and slide it underneath the valve there on your tractor as you're taking these pieces off, because regardless of what you do, you're going to lose a little bit of oil. So for our next step, we've got two hydraulic fittings that we need to put back in place of the ones that we just took off. So on the top here, I said to keep your parts. So you're going to use this banjo bolt that's up on the top of the tractor. It's got two copper washers with it. One should stay up here on the head. Take that part and slide it through this adapter fitting that comes along with your third function kit. And then take your other copper washer and put it on the bottom. This is going to screw back into the top of the transmission case up here. Down on the valve body itself, you've got another one of these fittings. This is going to be where your hoses are going to connect. You're going to take this guy and screw it right into the side of the valve body with the flare out. The flared side is going to attach onto your hydraulic hoses. There's a lot of threads on this. There it is. So we talked about the pressure and tank ports on the back side of the tractor. The pressure coming from the power beyond port on the loader valve and the tank returning back into the top of the tractor's transmission case. When you look at the valve body itself here on the third function valve, you're going to notice that P and T, pressure and tank, stamped into this aluminum housing right here. The tank is going to be on the outside, the pressure side on the inside. These two hydraulic hoses, one's a little bit shorter, that's going to feed up to the pressure side. The longer one's going to return to the top of the tractor on the tank side. You're going to want to do your best to route these hoses in a way that's going to keep them up and out of the way, maybe finding a zip tie or two in order to tie them up to the underside of the tractor to keep them up there. So for your next step, you've got a length of hose that's going to go from your third function valve out to the end of your loader. Those hoses are going to have couplers on them so that when you remove the loader from the tractor, you can disconnect those, leaving the third function back with the tractor while those hoses come off with the rest of your loader. You're going to want to route those hoses out to the end of the loader, looking along the boom to find some good places in order to zip tie them to keep them tied up and out of the way. On the end of those hoses, you're going to have a flat plate and a set of couplers. Generally, you're going to be able to find a place in order to attach that flat plate. Now, on some loaders, depending on the mounting on the end, you might have to get a little bit of creative, maybe tack weld that onto the end. But in the case of my LA534, this has got a bolt right on the back side of the torque tube here where the shield is. We can simply back those bolts out, lay this plate on, and run the bolts back in order to hold these couplers securely in place. In order to operate this valve, you need a source of 12-volt power, and that's going to come on this red wire right here. Got a couple things in the kit to help you do that. Got a fuse section right here to put in line, and some lube tubing to help clean it up. You can find 12 volts at a number of different places on your tractor. The most easy one is obviously to go straight to the battery. That's very simple. Our guys here would like to go to a place of sourced switch power typically, so if one of these is, say, drawing a little bit of current or somebody's sitting and playing with a rocker switch, it doesn't operate when the tractor's turned off. One easy place to find that is at your work light connector on the back side of the tractor. Lastly, we're going to go and install the button in order to operate the valve, and that's going to go on your loader stick. So we're going to take the loader stick here and pull the little rubber knobby off the top of it, and this guy is going to slide on in its place. Now this is held on here with two set screws that you're going to need an Allen wrench in order to loosen. So just back the set screws out, slide this guy over top, and then crank those set screws back down to hold it in place. So those are the steps that it takes to put the third function valve onto a tractor. When you go through and do one of these yourself, you can set aside an afternoon. You can probably go through and figure out the steps. It's not overly complicated. But do remember, while these things are kind of tailored for your particular model tractor, there are often some intricacies that you're going to have to figure out on your own. For us here today, we did a little bit of fussing around to find where to run hoses and where to mount couplers. Some things that just aren't clearly laid out in directions. So if you kind of had to say the technical knowledge of the person who's going to go around and put one of these on themselves should be kind of a 5 out of 10, right? You kind of got to have a good head about what you're doing. But if you're an absolute novice when it comes to the wrenches and working around on your tractor a little bit, you might want to leave these up to a professional. So if you're shopping for a third function kit for any piece of equipment, actually, even off brands that we don't carry, give us a call at Messick's. We've got some great resources here to hook you up with those pieces that are really going to expand the world of implements that you can put onto your tractor. You can reach out to us at 800-222-3373 or online at Messick's.com. You'd be surprised these things can actually draw a fairly significant amount of current because of the magnet. In order to operate this valve, you need a source of third function valve on this tractor. So if I went through and kind of summed up for somebody that was going to buy one of these kits from us and do it at home,